Well, the Republicans have been branded the party of old white men, a shrinking demographic that has locked them out of the White House. Ted Cruz is positioning himself, as we've seen, as the most conservative contender on the right. We're yet to see who his Democrat rivals will be, but it seems certain Hillary Clinton will be among them. To discuss the 2016 presidential race, I'm joined now by US affairs expert Brendon O'Connor from Sydney University. Good to have you with us, Brendon. First of all, the question of Ted Cruz being born outside of the United States in Canada, is that likely to be an impediment?
Well, most people think that you can't be a US president unless you're born in the United States, but that's not strictly true. You can be born to two US citizens overseas. John McCain was born in Panama, which was in some ways a US territory. So there are slight exceptions to the notion that most people have that you've got to be born within the 52 states of the United States.
What may be a greater challenge is the fact that he is positioning himself to the right, very conservative, appealing to that Tea Party base of the Republicans. But is that going to be enough to broaden the base to be a viable contender?
It's not likely that Ted Cruz will be the next US president. Very unlikely. In fact, he'll get good odds as sports bet. But he will be someone who'll get a lot of attention because he's got a loyal base. He's on the hard right of the Republican Party, the Christian right of the Republican Party, and so he will get people coming to his rallies saying, finally, there's someone who opposes everything Obama has done pretty much, who's very much anti-abortion, who's very hardline on what the United States should be doing in the rest of the world with its foreign policy. So he's one for the true believers on the Christian right. He launched his campaign at Liberty University, where Jerry Falwell, the very famous televangelist, made a name for himself and built up this large university, Christian university. So this is, I think, tactically probably what we're going to see from Cruz, sort of fireworks in the campaign, getting out ahead of the rest of the bunch, announcing he's running for the president this week.
What does a candidate like Ted Cruz do to more mainstream establishment candidates, potentially someone like Jeb Bush? Is that putting lead in the saddlebags of someone like Bush? Does it fracture the Republican vote?
Well, it will be a fractured field. There'll be, 6 or 7 contenders out there. It's an open election. Obviously, no President Obama running for re-election. So I think people will see it across the spectrum in the Republican Party as a big chance for a change of presidency, not running against an incumbent president. And you'll get people more moderate like Jeb Bush, probably Chris Christie, and then you'll get these hardliners like Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, who'll see that the field will split and they'll have their moment in the sun and maybe some kind of, some momentum will gain and they'll be somehow come out of the primaries as the winning candidate.
How much store do you put in the maxim that the Republicans have been the party of old white men, that the demography has changed? I know in this case Ted Cruz has a Latino background, but the demography of the US has changed. Obama tapped into the Latino vote, tapped into the black vote, got that vote out. Is that demography going to work against the Republicans regardless of who the candidate is?
I think so, because the American system works on winning big states, and the big states have had an influx of immigrants, an influx of Latinos, particularly in Texas, particularly Florida, New York State, California, of course. So if the Democrats can win sort of 3 out of those, and even Texas in the next maybe 8 years of presidential cycles, then it's all over for the Republicans. They can't make up those numbers with lots of smaller, more conservative sort of states in the heartland of the United States. So Ted Cruz, I'm not sure if he's a Latino dream candidate. He is one of the 3 Latino senators in the US Senate, but he will turn some Latinos off with, I think, his very hardline conservative positions. And Latinos tend to be more moderate in their social views and particularly their views about the role of government.
Now, for the Democrats, how does Hillary Clinton, assuming that she does ultimately run, position herself in relation to Barack Obama? What ground does she need to stake out if she is to be the presumptive Democratic nominee?
Well, she's been doing that maybe in crafty ways and not so crafty ways by saying, look, some of the problems in the Middle East, the rise of ISIS, some of the continuing problems in places like Libya are because Obama didn't go quite hard enough, that Obama was a little reluctant to use US power. So she still continues, I think, to present herself as a bit more of a hawk than Obama, as someone who'll be less conciliatory than Obama on foreign affairs. Now that position is a dangerous position to hold, because it reminds people that Hillary Clinton did support the 2003 Iraq War, and that allows for a candidate on her left in the Democratic Party to say, look, I'm going to be the true Obama, I'm going to do all the things that Obama promised in 2008, and remember Hillary's kind of, old news. She's part of this problem that we've got with the establishment of the Democratic Party. So she's not without vulnerabilities, I think, reasonably serious vulnerabilities for a primary challenge.
Brendon, just finally, for Australia, we know there have been some tensions between the Abbott administration and the Obama administration, but ultimately, regardless of how it goes, what does that mean for Australia when you look at the presidential race in the US?
My view is that the Republican Party are increasingly unlike many other parties in the Western world. That if there's a Republican president, there is a danger that a lot of the nations, particularly of Western Europe, will say, look, American politics just seems to have gone off into a space that's incomprehensible. And Bob Carr was saying this during the last American elections in 2012, that some of the people that were up for election, Santorum, I suppose the ghost of Sarah Palin, make American politics look worrying and concerning for allies.
Thank you again, Brendon. Good of you to join us. Brendon O'Connor there
My
from
pleasure.
the University of Sydney. Well, Queensland